Hello and welcome back to the Discover Wellbeing podcast. I'm your host, Allison Adams, and today's guest is Shari Barta, who is on a mission to help people live long and live strong. In today's episode, Shari breaks down the complex topic of pelvic floor health, making it a 101 essentials conversation that leaves you feeling inspired and empowered to improve your pelvic floor health. Shari is the founder of Posture Power Wellness and Corerehab. With over 20 years of experience in occupational therapy, pelvic floor therapy, personal training, and Pilates, Shari is on a mission to help people move better, feel stronger, and live pain-free. She's a results-driven healthcare professional who successfully guided countless individuals through recovery from both chronic and acute conditions using a personalized, science-backed approach. At Posture Power Wellness, Shari's clinical expertise is woven into every class and private session, ensuring that rehabilitation and strength building go hand in hand. Her work isn't just about fitness. It's about whole person transformation. So let's dive into the conversation with Shari. Shari, I am so happy that you said yes to being a guest on the Discover Wellbeing podcast and talk about pelvic floor health.
Thank you, Allison, for having me. I'm honored to be here. It is one of my favorite subjects, so I will never turn down an opportunity to talk about it.
Great. So let's have you start by sharing your definition of well-being, and then we can explore the conversation in different areas.
I feel like well-being or wellness is how I look at it. It's such a word that's thrown out there a ton. In our studio, we believe, I always say, live long, live strong. Or live long, live strong. And it is, there's so many ways to take that. There's so many ways to mean it. And I think that wellness and living well and well-being is all about being proactive and getting out of this like reactive, like place that our society likes to be in. I love seeing people, so many people I've learned, they've just accepted weird things going on in their body, and people have said, oh yeah, nope, no big deal, nope, no problem, nope. And it is, you don't need to live in chronic discomfort, you don't need to live in having issues and being told it's normal. It is not normal. So for me, well-being, wellness is all about being proactive and not accepting that status quo.
It sounds as though it's a bit of tolerance too. They just tolerate it. Like
Yes.
even if it's 2 or 5 or 10%, it's, oh, I'm just getting older, and or they've been an athlete for a long period of
Mhm.
time, and so those repetitive motions cause pain and discomfort, tightness.
How many times have you heard somebody be like, no pain, no gain?
Right.
No, that is not how it's supposed to be. You're not supposed to leave something already hurting. There's a difference between pain and muscle fatigue, a muscle ache.
Yeah.
Like that is different. I really feel like we really need to start being more kind to our bodies and giving them grace and start looking at how you can help yourself bigger picture and don't
Yes.
settle. Don't.
Yes, and to know your body well, to live
Mhm.
strong. Would you be kind enough to share the part of your journey that led you into specializing in this?
Yes. 20 years ago, if you told me I would be a pelvic health advocate and super passionate about this, I would have told you all you're crazy. Not the path I ever thought I'd go on. But I have two children. My children are 16 and soon to be 14. Thank God they're gorgeous and my favorite humans in the world because they destroyed me. I had my babies and I was left with a diastasis and pelvic floor problems. I've been active my whole life. I'm a therapist. I'm an occupational therapist. I've helped adults overcome physical different issues my whole entire life. It's like I move and groove. I've never sat still. I've never sat at a desk. I am just a mover and a shaker. And I just had all these issues. And I remember going to get help so badly that I ended up having to have surgery to fix it because I tried to rehab myself because nobody offered me help. I got abysmal care, pelvic health wise, postpartum. I had a female urogynecologist who was supposed to be one of the better ones. And by the way, I lived in the city. I did not live in the middle of nowhere. And she looked at me and said, "Oh, it's normal. You just need to deal." And I am quite a feisty, spicy New Englander. You can probably guess what kind of words I used at her. And I got angry and I got passionate. And I used the fact that I was a therapist and could do continuing ed. And I started soaking up everything pelvic floor. At the same time, I was doing Pilates. And I really pursued that path as well. And I really started to see how these things related. And it made me incredibly passionate because along my journey of soaking up all the information I could, because I was like, you're not going to give me somebody to help me, I'm going to help myself. That's the kind of person I am. And I basically formulated a program and I treated myself. And I now, am I perfect? No, I am 99% there. We all have a bad day here and there, but I'm golden. And it's been 16 years. And so I took all this knowledge and I formulated this program. So it was I now don't want to see any woman go through what I went through. I felt so alone, so isolated, being told it was normal to pee your pants. It's not. Too many of us are being told that it's normal, and we all need to start fighting back. There's a lot of talk out there. I don't want to divulge into a different place, but there's a lot of talk about how women going into perimenopause and mass menopause are getting gaslighted. Postpartum women get gaslighted. It is such a problem. Like the fact that you go to your postpartum appointment and they like high five you and say, "Oh, you're doing great. Do a Kegel." So bad. Is such a disservice. And so I think getting poor care myself, figuring out a way to treat myself in a positive mind body way, and having my knowledge and being angry, I've now become incredibly passionate to help other women not go through this. I in that same journey, because I know we'll go deeper in because my approach is a little different, and this is a piece of it. Some statistics stuck out to me. Pelvic floor therapy, traditional, can be very clinical, invasive. It just, a lot of women don't want to go there. There's also limited accessibility and so forth. So there's a lot of factors. A lot of women are like, no, I just don't want that. And I'm like, okay, only 1 in 10 women will go get help statistically per the NIH. It's such a sad number. And so I was like, wait a minute, I can take Pilates and I can take pelvic floor therapy and I can put these together and you can come in and do a program that's fun. You're on a reformer. You are working out with your friends. It doesn't have a social stigma and you get better. I am helping women. I have women pull me aside all the time, be like, oh my God, so I'm not peeing anymore. Like it's done. And I'm like, yes. And they're doing it while they're in a class and having a good time. So it's such a different focus. And it's a positive focus. And it allows us, because I remember having my babies and afterwards I looked down and I was like, is this mine? I feel like an alien in my own body. So it helped me build a positive relationship with me, because I always tell women, once you have a baby, you have a postpartum body, period. Our bodies change. It will never go back. But go ahead and build a really amazing relationship because we're rock stars. What we do is amazing. And that needs to be applauded, not swept under the rug. So there's my soapbox.
Oh, first, thank you for sharing so intimately about your journey. And the truth and transparency together has just led you into something where I know you're on a mission. You have a heart of gold. And yes, you are fiery, but it's to fuel your mission.
Thank
And
you.
to have this not only as an education, but a conversation that we all need to have. And there were so many things that you touched on in the story that we're going to talk about. And yet, I want to start at the very beginning to help you help the listeners, or to help our conversation around pelvic health. What is pelvic health, especially if you're hearing it for the first time? And why is it important that it becomes a mainstream conversation?
Okay, so we're going to start pelvic floor. We're going to just start with a basic anatomy. So your pelvic floor is 14 muscles that are set up like slings at the base of your pelvis. Think about the bony pelvis, and then think how there's that hole underneath. The muscles literally go front to back and side to side, and they're like a sling, all working together right there. They have so many jobs. Their job is to keep everything inside us. That's really important. It helps control our ability to void, urination, and defecation. It has a massive role in sex, which is really important, and definitely need to talk about that a little bit because I think that's a big piece of the puzzle. Our pelvic floor actually works with our breath. So these are some of the key things that they do. There's a couple more, like we could keep going. But it really is the base of your body. Like I tell everybody, that pelvic floor, pelvis, it's the center of our body. We don't think about that. We're really quick to just dump it and move on. We take it for granted. So what ends up happening is because it's one of its primary jobs is to keep everything in, it can, if the other muscles around it, our deep core, our hip flexors, if those are not working correctly, that pelvic floor will grip and tighten because it's like, Mayday, I've got to keep it in. So we want to keep that in and safe. So pelvic health is not just about that pelvic floor, it's actually about the relationship between the whole canister. So I like to talk about the core as a canister, a can. It is a relationship between, because let's just think about a can for a moment. Everybody, we know a can. We all have them sitting in our cupboards. It has a top, a bottom, and a wall. Now, if there is a hole or if there's a dent or there's something, does that can work as well? It gets, it won't hold things in. It doesn't keep it as fresh. It's harder to open and close. Think about a dented can. You have to work at that a little bit to get it open. It works ideal when everything is working in unison. Our body's no different. So think about your can. Now we're going to put an imagery to it. Your top of your can is your diaphragm. The bottom of the can is your pelvic floor. The wall is your deep core and some of your back muscles. I won't get into the nitty gritty of which ones, but this all has to work together to be optimal, and that is pelvic health. I often have a lot of my people do this, and you guys can do this at home, is take a deep breath. Where does that breath go? Most people talk about it going to their chest. Those are your secondary breathers. That means you're not even getting into your canister, and that means your pelvic health is not optimal because that pelvic floor is then most likely gripping for dear life. And there is statistically more people in our country with tight pelvic floors than weak, flaccid pelvic floors. And so when it's really tight, it's not able to work. Our pelvic floor, it's a series of muscles. It's no different than like our biceps, but a lot of people can't wrap their brain around that because you can't see it. It's deep in there. But if you walked around with your arm bent and like with your bicep tight, in tone, working, how would your arm feel? It would hurt. It would get ineffective. You wouldn't be able to straighten your arm. We're doing that to our pelvic floors by being so sedentary, by having tighter hip flexors, by then going and doing super heavy duty exercise, thinking we're doing it correctly, but not in the right alignment. When we don't do things in the right alignment, then those muscles start to tighten and we build on it. And you're just adding more layers. So, pelvic health is really about that balance of all of that working together. I tell a lot of people breath is one of the best ways to test it and see if you're there.
So you mentioned what's needed for optimal pelvic health, and you started to name some of the conditions. So can you describe when people might be seeing these symptoms?
Yes. So, with the pelvic floor, I'm going to talk about symptoms, but I'm going to talk about it in two different states. Like any muscles, you can have a really weak, like we call it hypotonic. So it's like weaker muscles. The muscles are kind of a little bit more flaccid. They're not able to make a good contraction. That's a really weak one. People who have this, a lot of times women directly postpartum, this is what they look like because those muscles have just been through a battle and they do have no idea what to do. These are people who are completely incontinent. They can't control anything. The second they got to pee, it's out. It's off and going. A lot of times they can't, if you're a woman who's menstruating, if you put a tampon in, you can't hold the tampon in. It just falls out. This is a part of that really weak pelvic floor. So incontinence, either it can be urine or fecal. It can be, and then unable to hold anything. Those people can't even find a contraction. Like they try to pull up, do a Kegel, and there's no connection whatsoever. So that is one extreme. And you can have somewhere in between this, okay? And then on the flip side, it's a hypertonic pelvic floor muscularly. I'm making this really simple, really just more muscular based. So the hypertonic pelvic floor is a pelvic floor that's gripping really tight. So this muscle is in a constant ball, pulling, and it cannot relax. Reality is that is still a weak pelvic floor because it's stuck in that position. Think about when you have a Charlie horse or kind of a knot somewhere in your body. When they release it, it's weaker. So we have to rehab it. So same thing, but we're on the opposite end of the spectrum. So a lot of times what you'll see with a tight pelvic floor is more this urge or stress incontinence where people jump and they're like, boop, it happens. Or they're like, think about, or they see a bathroom and they're like, bing, I gotta go. And if they don't get in there that second, they're done. That comes more with a tight pelvic floor. Pain with sex is another common symptom of a tight pelvic floor. There are many people that think sex is supposed to be painful, and it's not. It's not. Both ends impact a women, especially women. Actually, both men and women. I'm going to be honest. Having a weak or a tight pelvic floor impacts your ability to have an orgasm. All my men out there, not having a healthy pelvic floor causes erectile dysfunction. So those muscles are so important. So yes, it also can show up as back pain, hip tightness, so many things. And so people are quick to be like, oh, it's my back. Oh, it's my hip. Everybody, look at your pelvic floors because so many people have this tight one because when we are sedentary and we sit, and so many people sit for jobs now, our bodies aren't made for that. Our bodies are made to be movers. We're supposed to be hunters and gatherers when you look at us, like ancestrally wise. Our hip flexors tighten. Your hip flexors are housed right in the same place as your pelvic floor. So then they're not able to work. That pulls your pelvis out of alignment. So then that shuts off those muscles. And then that pelvic floor has to tighten. So people are just living their lives, and this is what's happening. That going back to that pelvic health, if you have any of the symptoms I've just talked to you about, take a deep breath. See where you're at. It may really be eye-opening to be like, oh, because a lot of people who have tight pelvic floors, they can get down into their stomach, but they can usually not breathe beyond their navel. They can't. I always play a game and I say, how low can you go? My goal is when you breathe that you can feel that pelvic floor expand on your inhale and pull back up on your exhale. I look at the floor more like a magic bowl and that you're slowly filling it. One of my teachers, her favorite one is thinking of it as a flower and that it blossoms on your inhale and pulls back up in your exhale. So it's just some imagery to try. But if you can't do that, it can be weakness and it can be tightness. And there's lots of us, there's lots of pelvic floor people out there to help you figure that out. But that is a really big sign. And I would highly suggest try it lying down first because that's the easiest place to find it. The hardest is standing upright because of gravity and our organs change.
Oh my gosh, that was so thorough. And the illustrations make everything come to life. Every body is unique. So you have to get to know what is aligned in you or what is not. Going into the realm of medical visits, I don't ever recall having either a gynecologist or a doctor say, we're going to do a pelvic health exam. As an occupational therapist, were you able to see that this is common practice, that people are getting attention and care? Ugh,
No. I'm going to tell you, this is such a loaded statement. Just, yeah. In my experience, so I've been an OT for over 20 years and I've worked with adults my whole career. I've worked with always physical dysfunction. So it's always muscular imbalance, soft tissues, like injuries to your bodies. And especially in my current world where I'm fusing all of that in a community-based environment, it is becoming blatantly clear that the doctors, and there's so many factors. Every doctor means well. Every healthcare worker, we go out there to do
yeah,
good.
yeah,
And then all the parameters and stress from, we all know we have a broken system that is not functioning well. And so things slip through the cracks. And what slips through the cracks is soft tissue issues. That is muscle imbalances. How many times I've done it, you go to the doctor and they're like, there's nothing on the x-ray. Of course there's not. Muscles don't show up on x-rays. MRIs can see a muscle, or CAT scans, like those deeper imaging can see them. But if you're not moving, you're not functioning, how can it see the imbalance? It can't. And then you go to a therapist, an outpatient physical or occupational therapy appointment, and they're literally back to back. Every 20 minutes, they have a new person. Then you're ushered. They don't have the time to really watch you posturally to see what's happening, to understand how your body is working in like unison. Like I believe there's yin yangs throughout our body. There is always a push and a pull, a give and a take. If those give and takes and push pulls aren't even, then there's a problem. But we are so quick to just go and then nobody's pointing it out. So people are functioning in that. What we do that's different is we look at that. The first thing I do is I look at somebody posturally. I look at their body and then I see how they're standing and how they're moving. And then I look at how they breathe. And it can be so insightful. But then at the same time, those pieces I do there are some things out there that you can prove that they're happening, but a lot of that is like a deep understanding from a therapist of a postural thing. And us saying we want to fix their posture, insurance companies won't always accept that. So we are so limited, our hands are tied. Like most therapists will tell you, and most medical professionals will tell you that we spend so much time defending our existence to an insurance company, and it really limits our ability to be a good care person. I love being a therapist. I hated being a therapist in healthcare. I am a truer and happier therapist now when I am in a setting where I don't take insurance. I call the shots. So I can be your coach and help you from a postural place. So that the problem is what you're asking for an examination, nope, it will never happen. Not in this traditional setting. You have to venture out for that. And that is so sad because it can fix so many things. 80% of pelvic floor dysfunction issues can be fixed through exercise. Yeah. Isn't that crazy? But we're not getting anywhere close. We're not we're not even scratching the surface because the way we test and diagnose and so forth doesn't look at it from the muscular place. Therapists do. Traditional pelvic floor therapy, that examination you're asking for, does this happen in a doc? Nope, but it will happen in a traditional pelvic floor setting. So if you go to a traditional pelvic floor therapist, they will do an internal exam and look at your musculature. Like I told you, many people don't want that. They don't want that. They feel like it's too invasive and they disconnect. Like we have to think about trauma, especially with women. That's not therapeutic. So we got to offer another option. There's not a lot out there. That's why I made what I made. And so I do it from a postural place because I can gather all the same information that is beneficial by looking at you from a postural place and understanding how the muscles work together. So that's the approach we take. But it really is. It's soft tissue, and soft tissue like injuries are not addressed very well in Western medicine. Therapists do. That is our niche. That is our specialty. But the parameters that Western medicine put on us really impact that as well.
Thank you for giving the Western medical approach because it is more of what I see acute care, in my opinion, and Eastern medicine and mind body practices are preventative care. And I just mean this is what we do to be in relationship with our body over the years, whether we have children,
Mm-hmm.
bear children or not. Our body is designed to change, and the deeper you
Yes.
are in relationship with your body and can understand that's not what Western medicine is for, even though there's so many routine visits, mammograms, all of these things that they've deemed as really important, there are these other things that are really important. And I know Asia takes such care of their women and the programs that they have in place after a woman gives birth, because
Yeah.
not only it's a physiological transformation that's just happened, but then you have the mental and the emotional and how to learn to care for yourself in new ways because we want to just give and go as a new mom. And so I think what you've brought to our awareness is it goes back to the thing that you started in the beginning about being proactive. But that means, like, even if it's an injury within yourself, that you have support, a resource like yourself, or you've been given the exercises to rehabilitate. So, thank you.
You're welcome. Just a thought for
Yeah,
everyone to think about, because I think this
yeah.
is everything you just said, I totally agree with. Why is it we give better care to somebody who twists their ankle than a woman who's just had a baby? A baby is an everyday miracle that is still amazing. There's still mortality and morbidity to all of this and what our bodies do. But why is what has happened to the woman completely swept under the rug? Our bodies have been traumatized, but we are never given the opportunity to rehabilitate. We're supposed to hit the ground running. So, ladies who's listening, we see you, we hear you, and you are not being selfish by saying, I have goosebumps right now, even
Me
saying
too.
this,
Ah!
that not being selfish for wanting your body back and wanting to rehabilitate. Shame on our civilization and our culture for giving us that feeling of guilt and shame from trying to do what we did. Back in the day, they said it takes a village. Why are we now having to be super women? We don't have villages anymore. Like we don't women had villages and people stepped up and just helped, and it's not like that anymore. And it all falls on you, and then you're told so many things from social media, and I don't even want to say these bad things that they say, to make you feel guilty for being like, wait a minute, what about me? First and foremost, what about you? Because if you don't take care of your body, it is going to be really hard to take care of those kids, because it keeps going. It never changes. Never. Allison, I know your kids are older. I'm guessing you're still doing it. My kids are teenagers, and they're still number one. And one of my clients yesterday said something so eloquent, and I have to put this out there, and we have
Yeah.
to think about it. She has toddlers, young kids. I think one's 5, one's 2 or 3. She's like, I am the understudy in my own life. And I was like, that's profound. That's, I think, things to think about. So, yes, ladies, take care of you. We hear you, and there's nothing selfish about that. It's actually incredibly important because it makes you show up as a better person, a better mom, a better partner. And guess what? Your first partnership is with yourself. Do that. I
Yes.
know time is hard and there are some solutions. So, we'll get into that.
And what I'm seeing too, as you bring this point of having a tribe, in essence, that's what you're doing. You're bringing
Yes.
together women at different stages that need your wisdom and expertise and creating that space where all of it is safe to explore. And your program is stealth because it looks like Pilates, it looks like a workout, it looks like this is my time and where I go and get strong. And I get to share my innermost secrets that I don't have the symptoms that I once did. Fill in the blank.
Yes. Yes.
So that's what I see your studio being, and you being the sage that is allowing all of this to
So
happen.
on that, I'm guessing we're going to
Yes,
add
yeah.
this part. So
Mhm.
everything there, that is exactly why I did what I did. So I have my in studio. So I have, and I'm so proud to announce this. We are actually opening our second location coming
Oh,
soon. So anybody
yay.
in Denver, if you'd like to come and check us out, right now we are in Cherry Creek North. My company is called Posture Power Wellness. We are actually opening our second location in Central Park. So another big mom neighborhood. I'm super excited about that. But for my ladies who don't live in Denver, I also have an app. It is called Corerehab. Community is really important in everything I do because when I started making this program and discovering it in myself and like what it was, the tribe piece was huge. I'm like, community is number one. My studio is designed to be, we know everybody's names, we know everybody's kids, we know everything that's going on. We see you. You are not a number. There are only 6 people in each class to allow for community. I don't want this to be a mill. There's too many Pilates mills showing up. And then even on the app, there is a community board. People can post and be and come to the table however they're comfortable. This was really important to me because I'm a nerd. Statistics drive me, they drive my missions. As I said, only 1 in 10 women will seek out help. There are, the last time I looked at the statistic, I want to say 25 million, but I don't have an updated number. But 25 million incontinent people in this country. There's I think it's a 34% incontinence rate. 80% of them are women. Women suffer in silence for 6 years before they go get help. The ones that do get help, by the way, because we told you the statistic's pretty low. These numbers to me are shocking and appalling, and I will be the first one to admit I was one of them. I didn't want to admit it. I tried to get my rehab myself. I was injured in it because I was having somebody do it who wasn't qualified to do it. Everything I made out of what I learned in my own self, in my own body, in my own life experiences. And so I want a place where women can feel comfortable to come and talk about it. I will bring it up. I will just throw random facts out there in classes or on the app because I want people to start knowing that these conversations need to happen because you're not alone and you have a village. You have a large village. There's like a lot of us, millions and millions that are going through this. And we're all sitting there quietly. Last time I looked, disposable incontinence pads, urinary pads, all of that, $8 billion industry. And then I don't know if you've seen the recent commercials. It's all about, oh, you can jump and be secret about it and do and still be leaking. Don't hide. Get Speak up. Get help because you don't need that. Let's make that industry go down, not up. Like, ladies, take your life back, take your body back. And so that community is huge in my company because that's what I want. I want us all talking about it. There are days I joke that I want to wear a shirt that says it's cool to pee your pants just so people start talking about it.
Oh, then again, going back to mainstream,
Yeah.
let's have a different conversation.
Yes.
Not that
That's what starts.
you are going to wear these because this is what happens to the body as you get
Mm-hmm.
older. These are the symptoms. This is where you can fall in, and you get the choice to say yes or no.
Also, in our society, there's this hide, hide, hide.
Yeah.
The problem is, like everything on our body, if you don't address it here, it actually gets worse over here. We won't even go into the conversation of what menopause and the change of hormones in our body does to our muscular system. But if you're like just scraping by, little secretive over it as like younger in life, when you get older, your body has karma and it will strike back harder. And so you're really, what are we hiding from? You are only hurting yourself. But then you go to a doctor and they're like, meh, it's normal.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't need to be normal. You do not need to accept it. It can be reversed. One of my favorite success stories is I had a woman who was very newly postpartum and she was completely incontinent. She's, oh my God, this is awful. She's like, how can I ever go back to work? How can I do anything? Like, this is awful. So she started seeing me in 5 sessions. Now, these were one-on-one sessions, they weren't classes, which, guess what? You can get the same benefit from both. 5 sessions, fully resolved. And it was because we got the muscles activated. That's all that needed to happen. She is 100% resolved. And then she was able to take her life back and then start focusing on being a new mom without this embarrassment and shame and worry and not how am I going to go on to the next step of my life when like I'm 30 something and things are pouring out of me. It can be, sometimes it can be that simple. It, sometimes it's not, but I don't want to give false hope that's going to happen every single time. But I feel like that's amazing. And I think that's empowering. She looked at me, she's like, you just gave me my life back. And I'm like, you're welcome. It's,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm looking at my notes on the side, and I think we breezed through like lots of questions because it's just
I think
been
so.
so organic and so good. Sherry, this conversation is so rich. But I would love for you to share at this point because you have mentioned your studio, your tribe, private, and group classes. But tell us about your approach. You
Okay.
mentioned Pilates and then you mentioned core. So if you could bring that together.
So my approach is this posture that we keep talking about. There is an alignment that your pelvis really needs to get into for you to really be able to activate your lower core in your hip flexors, offload your back. When that lower core, deep core, and hip flexors start firing correctly, it offloads the pelvic floor. So using these clinical anatomy, it's all anatomy lines in understanding of posture. I have built a clinical protocol that is built into every single class at my studio. So that you can come to a class. I have lots of teachers, they're creative, they're fun, but they know that this core protocol has to be fused in. And it's just how we approach people. And that's where we can get the change. There's a lot of talk out there that neutral alignment, it's not that important. It's just important to move. No, because when that pelvis is not in the right position, you actually cut off muscles. You shut off that lower core, those hip flexors, you hyper straighten your back, you tighten that pelvic floor. Then you're telling that all to get challenged there. Think about it. It doesn't work mechanically. It does not work. So we really are mindful of it. We have lots of tricks to help people find it and maintain it no matter where you are on the spectrum. And we that is how we do. So we find that first and then we challenge you out of it. We are a full Pilates studio, so we have all the equipment. I love Pilates equipment. I love big toys. They're fun. And these Pilates equipment, we can modify it up or down to get to that just right place for you to help isolate those muscles. So we're putting you in the right position and isolating muscles and meeting them where they're at. To me, that's brilliant. I also took it one step farther. So my app is called Corehab. At my studio, there's a class called Corehab. This is my baby. This is my signature program. It is a fusion of pelvic floor therapy exercises and Pilates. It takes all of this. It takes all the concerns of women who have diastasis, like because diastasis, that's the fancy word. It's that splitting in the front where women's dome, core wise, You need to exercise differently. These are things that are already brought into this class so that you don't have to be like, I can't do that. It's all clinically set so that you can be safe and get that transverse firing and be more aware. So it is a kind of even a step up, that there's a lot more clinical parameters in there to make it safe for absolutely everyone. And guess what? Men need that too. I have met many men who dome in their stomach, and I have actually watched personal trainers work them out with that doming happening. And I cringe, because the thing is, gentlemen, ladies, don't keep doing it. If you're tenting and doming in your core, you're straining that and you will herniate, and it will cause so many more issues. There are safe ways to do abdominal exercises without that happening. So these are the things that we bring into our programming. So you will get a great workout. I have never had people walk out and say, "Ooh, that was easy." Never. Never. I have people be like, "Oh my Lord, I'm going to feel this tomorrow." But the goal is to do it safely and at the right level to keep your muscles firing correctly and not go into compensatory patterns. So that's what we do. That is our signature. That is our niche. And this is what is overlooked in large fitness gyms. They don't have the capacity to be able to meet that. And it takes time. And it's not sexy. I'll be honest with you. It's not sexy. A lot of people go to these big workouts, they're like, hey, look what I did. And I'm like, but that did nothing for you.
Yes. I think we're at a point in our lives, many of us, that we want high touch, as we want it personalized. We've gone through so many mental, emotional, and spiritual things, and they all then are reflected in the body, our nervous system.
After 6, we can't watch body mechanics. So when you come to our studio, you are either cued, touched, both, something to make sure your body is in the right place. We are very hands-on. We are not standing in a corner with a mic. We are pacing up and down. We are going to each reformer. We are touching and adjusting and changing, because you can't just cue something and think people are going to say. Our brains trick us all the time. You think you're doing it. I tell everybody, I've been doing Pilates for 16 years. I think you guys all know I'm deeply passionate about this at this point, on an obsession level. But if I go to a class and you do not correct me, I won't go back. Because I know that what I'm doing in my head and what my body's actually doing, they're two different things. And that is because we all have imbalances. And so the idea is to not exercise in those imbalances, challenge those imbalances, because that's how we will get better. And that is where wellness comes from. That is where well being comes from.
Yes. Then again, live long, live strong, right? So, empowering women and men to take action as part of their physical health, we're going to call pelvic floor health physical health. Is this something that they can do at home? Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay, okay, good.
Yes. So the app is designed for people at home. A lot of times, especially, my thought is, where the app started and was born, it is created much farther. But my thought was, oh, I had a baby in the city and got crap care where there's so many options. What about the women who are in the middle of nowhere? That's where I went from. So I was like, you know what? I want to have something that access them. But then it grew. What about the one that's trying to balance everything? That she's returned to work, still a new mom, she's still figuring out all these hats. The idea of going to a studio for an hour-long class is daunting. It is daunting, and I respect that. And they're like, I just can't, because by the time it's a 2-hour process. By the time you leave, you park, you get in, you do, and you're like, oh my gosh, I could do A, B, C, D, E, F, G with 2 hours. What if I said you could do it in 20 minutes at your house? All the classes in the app are between 18 and 25 minutes. You can do it, it's purposely web-based. You can do it on your TV, your computer, your iPad, your phone, literally anything that has the internet. You can access this. So there's convenience to that. My approach is that I meet every person where they are at. I don't expect you to fit into my mold. I meet you there. So that's what this app does. It meets you where you're at when you're like, oh my God, I don't have it in me to physically get there. You don't have to. This will meet you there. So that's, yes, we can do this. And that one's more of a home-based one. So I designed it so that it was on a mat. Sometimes I throw small props in. I'm very conscientious. If you don't want to do those ones, skip those classes. Do what fits you. The other perk to this app, which I think is really important, is when I did my research on the apps that are out there, the amount of Kegel apps I saw, I was like, oh my God, there's so much more than Kegels in the world. And then there were so many people out there, which I love this, but then from the therapist side, I don't love it, that they're like, here's an exercise program. It worked for me. So let's do it. And I'm like, where's your clinical backing? But one was like, it was just all exercise based. It never gave you knowledge. So that's where I went different. There are exercise classes in my thing, but there are tracks that are designed to literally help educate you, whether you have incontinence, prolapse, diastasis, a tight pelvic floor, postpartum, prenatal. I am actually going to be bringing in a menopause one as well. That is in the works. But there are tracks in there. And in these tracks are not only exercises, but there is how do you breathe? Can you get it down there? Can you find neutral? Do you understand what scar massage is? Do you understand what this is? So all those nuggets of information you get when you go see a therapist, that you're like, oh, that one piece of information was worth this whole entire visit. I put those in the app. So it is exercise and pelvic knowledge fused together in one place. You can do it on your own time schedule. You can do it on the DL for anybody who does not want to tell somebody that this is going on. And you can refer back to it. It's their presentations. It's the whole everything, whole enchilada right there.
What came to mind is you could have a pelvic floor party with your new-to-be moms and your postpartum moms, integration of the knowledge and the practice. And that's how it comes to life and really, as you said, activates healing, transformation, and you are just the perfect person to deliver all this. So thank you for all your great work.
Oh, thank you. I firmly believe knowledge is power. I think I didn't email you this, so I'm going to throw it out there right now. For anybody who is super interested in the app and you're like, yes, please, I know you have my website. You can go to my website and there is a tab that says Core Rehab and you can download it right there. Use code pelvic floor, put it all together, capital letters, and you'll get 1 month free. Give it a shot. See what you think. Like I said, my mission is just to help women and men. This whole world should be living with happier pelvic floors.
Should we end there? That is a great last quote.
Perfect.
Are you enjoying the Discover Wellbeing podcast? If so, I would love to hear about it. Leaving a review helps more people find us and really makes a difference. So share your thoughts on Apple Podcast or your favorite platform.